My name is Darren Cole. I'm 35 years old, and until a few weeks ago, I believed I was building a solid future with my fiancée, Sophie Hale, who's 32. I work as an organizational strategy consultant in Denver, Colorado. My whole career has been built on reading people, understanding systems, and making rational decisions under pressure. I valued stability, direct communication, and emotional autonomy. I thought Sophie and I shared those values. I was wrong. We'd been together for a little over 2 years. We had plans. Marriage, a house, the whole American dream package. Her father, Richard Hale, owned a tech holding company with connections all over Denver, including at the firm where I worked. I knew the family had influence, but I didn't think much of it. Sophie seemed grounded, ambitious, focused. Until one Tuesday night in early August 2025 changed everything. We were having dinner at my apartment. Nothing fancy, just pasta and wine on a weeknight. She arrived with a leather folder tucked under her arm. I thought maybe it was wedding planning stuff, venue options, budget breakdowns, the usual. She set it on the table, slid it toward me, and said, "I need you to read this." I opened it. At first glance, it looked like a checklist, but as I read further, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a wedding plan. It was a contract, a personal improvement contract. For me, there were income targets. Specific dollar amounts I needed to be earning within the next 12 months, hitting at least $180,000 annually, when I was currently making around $130,000. There were appearance guidelines, down to the brand of suits I should wear and the gym routine I needed to follow. There was a car model listed, a Mercedes-Benz C-Class when I drove a perfectly reliable 2019 Honda Accord. There were social expectations, names of people I should befriend, clubs I should join. And at the bottom, there was a neighborhood, not a suggestion, a directive, Cherry Creek, one of Denver's most expensive areas, where condos started at $700,000. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new, unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. I looked up at her. I actually laughed. I thought it had to be a joke, some weird test or prank. But her face was completely serious. She was waiting for my response like she'd just handed me a business proposal. "This is a joke, right?" I asked. "No," she said calmly. "It's clarity. It's about setting expectations so we don't have frustrations later." I read it again. Every line, every demand. And I realized something that should have been obvious months earlier. Sophie didn't want a partner. She wanted a project, a customizable life accessory she could mold, improve, and parade around. And the worst part? She genuinely believed this was reasonable. I closed the folder. I set it down gently, and I looked her in the eye. "Sophie," I said, "if you need a checklist to validate love, you've already started from the wrong place." She blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means we're done. No yelling, no theatrics, just a clear, calm statement." I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. "You're being dramatic," she said, but her voice wavered. "No," I replied. "I'm being honest. This ends now." She left, and that night I did what any rational person does after ending a relationship with someone who has a history of manipulation and a father with serious influence. I changed the locks, not out of spite, out of security. I'd seen the signs before, small moments of control disguised as suggestions, and I wasn't going to leave anything to chance. Then I started building my defense. I created a folder on my encrypted cloud drive and began saving every interaction from that point forward. Texts, emails, voicemails, all time-stamped and organized. I wasn't planning revenge. I was building a firewall. The signs had been there for months. Looking back now, it's embarrassing how obvious it all was. Sophie had a way of making suggestions that sounded innocent but always required me to change something. The shirt I wore to her friend's engagement party back in May? Maybe try something more polished next time. My reliable Honda Accord? It's fine for now, but you should think about upgrading soon. Even my friends. She'd subtly steer me away from certain people, claiming they were holding me back professionally. But the biggest red flag was how she handled decisions. She never made them with me. She made them with her father first, then presented them to me as done deals. Where we'd vacation, which caterer to use for the wedding, even which bank we should use for a joint account we hadn't opened yet. Richard Hale's fingerprints were on everything. Richard was a big deal in Denver. His holding company controlled stakes in software firms, real estate ventures, and consulting agencies, including mine. He wasn't my direct boss, but his influence was everywhere. People didn't say no to Richard Hale, and Sophie had learned from the best. The attempts started within 48 hours. First came text messages, a dozen in the first day alone. "Can we talk about this? You're overreacting." I was just trying to help us succeed. I didn't respond. Every message went into the folder. Then the calls started. I let them go to voicemail. She oscillated between apologetic and accusatory. "I didn't mean for it to come across that way," in one message. Then in the next, "You're being childish. We need to discuss this like adults." I saved everything. 3 days after the breakup, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. I saw her through the peephole holding flowers. I didn't open the door. Instead, I texted her, "Please don't come here again. We're done. Respect that boundary." She knocked for another 5 minutes, then left the flowers on my doorstep. I photographed them, noted the time and date, and threw them away. The next morning, I filed a brief incident report with my apartment building's management. No drama, just creating a record. On the 4th day, Richard Hale called me directly. I'd only spoken to him a handful of times before, always brief and cordial. This time, his tone was different, warmer, almost fatherly. "Darren," he said, "I heard you and Sophie hit a rough patch. These things happen. I wanted to reach out, see if we could grab coffee, talk things through." I kept my voice even. "I appreciate the call, Richard, but there's nothing to talk through. Sophie and I have parted ways. It's final." "Come on now," he said, his voice dipping into negotiation mode. "Every couple has disagreements. You're both smart people. I'm sure we can work something out." "We, not you, we." "There's nothing to work out," I repeated. "I wish her well, but we're done." There was a pause. Then his tone shifted, still friendly but with an edge. "You know, Darren, I've been impressed with your work at the firm. I've been talking with some colleagues about potential opportunities, promotions, maybe even a partnership track. But these things require stability, you know? Personal stability." And there it was. The carrot and the stick in a single sentence. Reconcile with Sophie, and doors open. Stay broken up, and doors close. "I appreciate you thinking of me," I said carefully. "But my career decisions are separate from my personal life. I'm sure you understand." "Of course," he said, but I could hear the tightness in his voice. "Just think about it. We'll talk soon." I hung up and immediately sent a brief professional email to HR at my firm. I noted that I'd received an unsolicited personal call from a stakeholder regarding my relationship status, and wanted it on record that my personal life had no bearing on my professional performance. I didn't name Richard directly. The paper trail was enough. Over the next 2 weeks, the pattern continued. Sophie sent gifts to my office. Chocolates, a watch, a handwritten letter. I refused all deliveries and returned them unopened. Richard happened to be at the same business lunch as me twice, each time steering conversation toward reconciliation. I kept interactions brief and professional, logging every detail. Then came the emotional emails, long messages from Sophie, ranging from apologies to accusations. She claimed I'd abandoned her without explanation, that I'd led her on for 2 years, that I owed her a real conversation. I saved everything but never responded. By the 3rd week of August, I noticed colleagues treating me differently. A few avoided eye contact. One mentioned casually that he'd heard I was going through something personal and hoped I was okay. Word was spreading, and I had a pretty good idea who was controlling the narrative. That's when I contacted an attorney. Not to sue anyone, but to understand my rights and options. I walked into Michael Brennan's office with my documentation folder, printed and organized. He was a civil litigation specialist in his 50s, gray at the temples, with the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen everything. He flipped through my records, raised his eyebrows, and looked at me. "You've been thorough." "I work in strategy," I replied. "Thoroughness is the job." He nodded. "Good. Because if the Hales decide to escalate, they have resources, money, connections, and apparently a willingness to use both." "What would escalation look like?" I asked. "Defamation, false allegations, attempts to damage your professional reputation. With someone like Richard Hale involved, assume he'll use every lever available." "So what do I do?" "Keep documenting. Don't initiate contact. Don't respond to provocation. And if anything feels legally significant, call me immediately." I left his office feeling validated but uneasy. I'd done the right things, but I was playing defense against people used to winning. The escalation came in early September, about 3 weeks after the breakup. I was in a meeting when my phone buzzed. A text from a former colleague. "Hey man, saw the post about you. That's rough. Hope you're okay." During my lunch break, I checked social media. Sophie had posted a long emotional statement on Facebook. Carefully worded, vague enough to avoid direct accusations but clear enough to paint a picture. She talked about investing 2 years in someone, only to be abandoned without explanation. She mentioned emotional manipulation and broken promises. She didn't name me, but anyone who knew us would connect the dots. The post had dozens of comments, supportive friends, angry reactions. Sophie responded to some, always playing the victim, always implying there was more she was too classy to share. I screenshot everything and sent it to Michael with a note. "This just went public." He called within an hour. "Don't respond. Don't comment. Don't defend yourself. Don't engage at all. Let her keep talking. Every word she posts is potential evidence." It was harder than it sounds, watching someone rewrite history in real time. But I trusted Michael's advice. I stayed silent. The professional fallout came 3 days later. My supervisor, Amanda Torres, called me into her office. She looked uncomfortable. "Darren," she said, "I need to ask you about something. We've received concerns about your conduct outside of work, specifically regarding a personal relationship." I kept my face neutral. "What kind of concerns?" "Suggestions that you engaged in behavior that might reflect poorly on the firm." "Nothing specific, just general concerns about professionalism and judgment. Richard Hale's influence filtering through the corporate structure." "Amanda," I said calmly, "I ended a personal relationship because it wasn't healthy. I did so respectfully and clearly. Since then, I've been contacted repeatedly despite requesting no further communication. I've maintained complete professionalism. If someone has specific allegations, I'd like to hear them. Otherwise, this feels like hearsay." She shifted in her seat. "There are no formal allegations, it's just the optics." "The optics of breaking up with someone?" I asked. She sighed. "Look, I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. Be careful. Keep your head down." I thanked her and immediately emailed Michael with a summary. Then I sent HR a carefully worded email, documenting that I'd been questioned about my personal life without specific allegations, and requesting any future concerns be presented in writing with clear details. The pressure continued. Sophie's friends left cryptic comments on my old social media posts about truth and karma. Someone left a 1-star review on my LinkedIn profile, claiming I was unreliable and dishonest. I reported it, and LinkedIn removed it within 48 hours, but the intent was clear. They were trying to damage my reputation piece by piece. Then Richard called again in mid-September. This time, no friendly offers. His tone was cold, businesslike. "Darren," he said, "I think we need to have an honest conversation. Sophie is devastated. You've hurt her deeply, and frankly, your behavior has been unprofessional. Now, I'm willing to overlook this. I'm willing to help you both move past it. But you need to show some maturity here, apologize, make things right, and we can all move forward." I let him finish. Then I spoke slowly and clearly. "Richard, I ended a relationship that wasn't working. That's my right. Sophie has since ignored my requests for no contact, posted misleading information publicly, and apparently enlisted others to interfere with my professional life. I've documented all of it. If this continues, I'll be forced to take legal action. Silence. Then his voice turned sharp. You're threatening me? I'm informing you, I said. I want this to stop. If it doesn't, I have options. He hung up. I immediately called Michael. They're not backing down, I told him. Good, Michael said. Because now we have a pattern. Harassment, defamation, professional interference. If they keep pushing, we can file for a restraining order and possibly pursue a civil suit. I don't want to sue anyone, I said. I just want them to leave me alone. Sometimes, Michael said, the only way to make someone stop is to show them you're willing to fight back. A week later, in late September, Sophie and Richard made their critical mistake. They filed a formal complaint with my employer's ethics board, claiming I'd engaged in emotional abuse, violated Sophie's privacy, and caused her psychological distress. The move was clearly designed to get me fired or pressured into submission. But they'd underestimated one thing. I had evidence, weeks of it, time-stamped, organized, and completely factual. Michael and I prepared our response. We didn't just defend, we countered. We presented the original improvement contract Sophie had given me, proving the controlling behavior started with her. We showed every text message, every email, every documented attempt at contact after I'd requested space. We included the voicemails, the unsolicited gifts, the social media posts, and records of Richard's calls with their implied career threats. The ethics board reviewed everything. Within 10 days, they dismissed the complaint entirely. Not only that, they sent a formal warning to Richard Hale's company, noting that any further interference with an employee's personal life could result in legal consequences. After that, Sophie and Richard went silent. No more calls, no more posts, no more surprise encounters. It was over. The silence was almost surreal. After weeks of constant pressure, everything just stopped. Sophie deleted her Facebook post. Richard stopped showing up at events where he knew I'd be. But the damage to my peace of mind lingered. I'd spent weeks in defensive mode, always waiting for the next attack. Even after the ethics board dismissed their complaint, I found myself checking my phone constantly. It took time to realize it was truly over. They'd lost, and they knew it. Michael called me in early October. I wanted to check in. How are you holding up? Better, I said. It's strange. I keep expecting something else to happen. That's normal, he said. You've been in fight-or-flight mode for weeks. But Darren, I want you to understand something. What you did, the way you handled this, that was textbook. You stayed calm, you documented everything, and you never gave them ammunition. A lot of people would have lashed out. You didn't. That discipline saved you. I just did what made sense, I said. Exactly, Michael replied. And that's rare. You should be proud. I thought about that conversation for days. Proud wasn't quite the word. Relieved, maybe. Validated, definitely. But there was also something else. A clarity I hadn't felt in years. Sophie's ridiculous contract, as insulting as it was, had actually been a gift. It forced me to see the relationship for what it really was. A transaction. She didn't love me. She loved the idea of molding me into something she could display, something that met her father's approval, something that fit her predetermined life plan. I'd been so focused on making things work that I'd ignored how far I'd drifted from myself. The breakup gave me back something I'd lost: autonomy, the ability to make decisions based on what I wanted, not what someone else expected. After 2 years of subtle manipulation, it felt revolutionary. By mid-October, I made a decision. I started planning to leave the consulting firm, not immediately, but strategically, not just because of Richard's influence, though that was a factor. I realized I didn't want to work where personal connections could override professional merit. I wanted to build something entirely mine. I spent weeks preparing. I reached out to former clients, tested the waters for independent work, and built a financial cushion. By late November, I gave my notice. I was starting my own consulting practice, focusing on organizational strategy for mid-sized companies. I found a small office in downtown Denver, took on clients I genuinely wanted to help, and set my own hours. The pay was less predictable, but the freedom was worth it, and the work was good, really good. Within months, I had a steady roster of clients, regular referrals, and a reputation for being thorough, honest, and effective. Turns out, when you're not constantly looking over your shoulder, you do better work. I also reconnected with people I'd drifted away from during my relationship with Sophie. Old friends from college, former colleagues, family members I'd neglected. I realized how much I'd isolated myself, how much of my social life had been filtered through Sophie's preferences. Getting that back felt like breathing fresh air. One evening in late December, I ran into someone from my past at a coffee shop. Her name was Lauren. We'd worked together briefly years ago, stayed friendly but lost touch. She was smart, funny, and refreshingly direct. We talked for over an hour, just catching up. No agenda, no performance, just two people enjoying a conversation. Walking home that night, I realized something important. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I wasn't trying to prove anything or fill a void. I was just living my life on my own terms, and it felt good. If something developed with Lauren or someone else, great. If not, I was fine either way. That kind of contentment, that lack of desperation, was something I'd never felt with Sophie. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Sophie eventually started dating someone new. A corporate lawyer from her father's network, someone who apparently checked all the boxes on her list. Good for her, I suppose. I hope she's happy. I genuinely do. But I also hope she learned something. Probably not, but hope is free. Richard Hale continued running his business empire. I'd see his name in the local business news occasionally, always expanding, always acquiring. We never spoke again. Some bridges are better left burned. As for me, I'm doing well. Really well. My consulting practice is thriving. I've built relationships based on mutual respect, not manipulation. I've learned to trust my instincts, set boundaries, and walk away from situations that don't serve me. Those are skills I'll carry for life. Looking back, I understand the whole ordeal wasn't just about Sophie or Richard. It was about me learning who I was and what I was willing to accept. The list she handed me wasn't just a catalog of expectations, it was a test, and I passed by refusing to take it. People sometimes ask if I have regrets. The honest answer is no. Not about ending things, not about how I handled it, not even about the 2 years I spent in that relationship. Every experience teaches you something. Sophie taught me what I don't want. She taught me the value of documentation, the importance of boundaries, and the power of staying calm under pressure. Those are valuable lessons. The greatest irony is that while she was trying to mold me into her ideal partner, I was learning to become the person I actually wanted to be. And that person didn't need her approval, didn't need a checklist, didn't need anyone's permission to be free. I still have that original contract, tucked away in a file somewhere. I kept it, not as a reminder of her, but as a reminder of the moment I chose myself, the moment I realized that love without acceptance isn't love at all. It's just negotiation, and I'm done negotiating. These days, when I meet someone new, whether professionally or personally, I'm clear about who I am from the start. No pretense, no performance, just honesty. And if that's not enough, that's okay. Because I learned something crucial. The right people will accept you as you are, and the wrong people will hand you a list. I know which one I'll choose every time. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment letting me know what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.